All right, so let me send that link in the chat for you so you can click on that link. You follow along with the presentation if you wish. But again, we'll have the recording for you and the link to review and come back to if you don't grab it early on here. All right. All right, so we're going to be looking at a variety of different technologies and just inform you kind of some of the things that the technologies and digital tools that your students are using maybe on a daily basis in their classroom, but then also share some of the technologies that you have access to as a parent and also some of the supports you have in place. So this will be our agenda for the evening. Like I said, you'll hopefully understand some of the digital tools available to teachers, students, and parents. You'll hear about the different types of information that is available to you in Parent View. And I know many of you responded saying that you have activated your Parent View account. So I'll just take you through a little walk of Parent View and what information is available to you, especially those of you that are maybe sixth grade parents. Parent View may not have been something you were frequently using, maybe in elementary school to monitor students' grades, or their schedule and so forth. That becomes a bigger piece of, or bigger use for you here as you get into middle school and even high school. And then we'll talk about how you can connect from Parent View to MyMCPS Classroom, or what's also known as Canvas, which I know Halliwells are big Canvas users. Each teacher has a classroom and so forth, and we'll talk about that. And then I'll show you where there are resources for you about all these things that we'll talk about tonight. And when you run into some technology issues, who can you reach out to for support? So that'll be our agenda for the night. Just a couple quick housekeeping pieces here. As I mentioned, the chat I've disabled, only I can push out links there. But if you do have a question, there is a Q&A feature. So on your bottom toolbar, if you're with us on a laptop or a Chromebook or something like that, you should have a toolbar at the bottom, and there's a little Q&A feature there. You can ask your questions there, and we'll be monitoring those questions as they come in, and we'll either answer them right there in the Q&A or answer them live if it's something that we can talk through. And even at points, we have a fairly small group here. I can ask you to unmute and further discuss things. So we'll have some time at the end to do stuff like that. All right. All right, so let's jump in and talk about what we kind of call the MCPS digital backpack. So all those tools that your students have available to you. And I'm going to speak specifically to the ones that we have central licenses for, which means every student in the district has access to this tool, or teachers or parents have access to that based on that district-wide license. This is not an exhaustive list of technologies that may be used in the classroom. Schools are able to vet different apps and explore them and use them with their students. So again, this may not be an exhaustive list. This is really the centrally licensed applications that students would be using fairly regularly and all students have access to. So I'll kind of go around our screen here and talk about the different applications that you have available, or that you and your students would have available. Starting in the bottom left-hand corner, that Google Workspace for Education, formerly known as Google Apps for Education. It seems like every 2 years, Google likes to change the name and keep us on our toes, but that's technology, right? But Google Workspace for Education, your students have access to. Part of that is through their Chromebook. So every student has a Chromebook when they are in school. And once they sign in with we call it their .NET account, that's their Google account, their educational Google account, which then gives them access to their Drive, where they can store files, documents, slides, presentations, and so forth that they're using throughout the school day to complete assignments and so forth. And that's a free account. Every student has one, every teacher has one. And it's just that workspace where we can share and collaborate on different projects and assignments and so forth. Moving up the path here, we have that red circle. That is our MindSPS Classroom, or Canvas logo. And Canvas is considered a learning management system. And what that really means is that's a digital space for teachers to create assignments, create digital discussions, share content with students and materials. Many of you experience probably Canvas or MindSPS Classroom during the pandemic, that was our mode of transfer or our communication of materials and lessons. So that still exists, that's still in use. And again, I know Halliwell's they were early adopters and continue to adopt and use Canvas for pushing out assignments, for communicating with students and so forth. So it's just that platform, that digital platform for learning to take place. All right, as we go up and to the right, you'll see there is the Remind logo. Remind is new to the district this year, and we're rolling it out progressively to schools as they are ready to start using Remind. Hopefully will be by winter break. We will have a district-wide rollout of Remind. And Remind is a communication platform where teachers and administration in schools can push communications out to you. The real great benefit of this platform is that you can receive it as a text message or an email, depending on your preference and what you have set up in Synergy as your parent contact. But what our hope here is, and what we've heard loud and clear from the parent community, is that I use myself as an example here, as I have an elementary school student, I have a middle schooler and a high schooler. And each one of those schools and each one of those teachers may have a preferred way to communicate with me. And that could be very overwhelming when you have that many different forms of communication and trying to keep it all straight and add in all of the schedules and all that. It gets really difficult to keep track of all that. So the goal of moving towards Remind is to have a streamlined, hopefully one pathway for communication from school to family and family back to schools as well. All right, so be on the lookout for that coming up soon. There'll be more information coming as we roll that out further. That middle top one here, Synergy Education Platform, that's our heavy one. That's called our Student Information System. It's kind of like the brains of the operation. All of the information is stored there, and it sends that information out to all of our other platforms. That's where students are enrolled. That's where, as you enroll a student, your parent information is entered. That generates your parent view account and so forth. And it goes through all of those pieces, and it feeds those rosters, those student rosters, to all the different places. That's also where our teachers take attendance and enter grades on a daily basis, or grades maybe not on a daily basis, but attendance at the least. But Synergy, it has many layers to it. I always compare it to an onion. It has so many layers to it and so many pieces of the puzzle, but it really drives and supports a lot of the other systems because it houses all that student data and sends it to the other systems. And again, for you, the parent, what you mostly see with Synergy is, as I said, parent view. That's what the platform that drives parent view. Okay. Coming now to our right, there's another application called Kami, and it interacts with some of our other applications. It interacts with Google Workspace for Education. It also interacts with Canvas, and it's a platform where you can actually annotate on top of PDFs, or teachers can turn a document into a PDF and have students show their learning on that. Again, as we were in the pandemic, this was a really great tool. I know math teachers especially liked it. They had these great, capture sheets or word problems and so forth that were on a document. They're like, how do I get my students to write on top of this? Kami is that answer. It allows students to annotate on top of it. But this year, especially, Kami has a lot of really cool embedded features now, like a translate feature, a text-to-speech feature, some highlighting features. It has a lot of powerful tools to it that allow all students to access that document that's been opened in Kami. And as I said, it interacts with things like Canvas, where teachers can create a Canvas assignment that uses Kami for students to show their learning. So just another tool we have here in our backpack. And then just going quickly down this right-hand side, coming very soon, we will have a Canva for Education account. And those of you that are not familiar with Canva, it is a digital design platform where students can create anything from infographics to very professional looking flyers, presentations, videos even. They can do all those things in Canva. And with the Education account we have coming soon, they'll be able to submit that to their teacher to show their learning. So really what a platform like Canva does is it broadens the ways students can show their learning. So rather than just always writing an essay, they could maybe create a recording, a broadcast to show their learning, or an infographic, or things like that. flyers to show their learning in just different ways. So that's one that's coming soon. And I would dare to say, I bet some of your students or your children are already using Canva for a personal on a personal basis to create cool designs. So they'll be really familiar and hopefully very excited about that one. This next one down is actually, it's more of a teacher tool, but it's one that teachers use called GoGuardian to monitor students' access and time while they're on their Chromebooks. And teachers can use GoGuardian to limit and restrict websites that students are able to go to. So if I were, say, an English teacher, I may want my students just to go to Canvas, their Google Drive, and then maybe one other curriculum website. With GoGuardian, I could limit those sites that they can go to and kind of keep them in that box. So that way they're not off maybe at different websites that may not be productive for our classroom time. So GoGuardian is a nice tool that we have to kind of keep students where we are and where we need them to stay focused while they're on their Chromebooks. And a note is that GoGuardian only works when they are on the Montgomery County network. So as they go home and maybe use a Chromebook or sign into their .NET, GoGuardian is not monitoring them at that point. It is only while they are on the Montgomery County Wi-Fi. Okay. And the last tool that we have in our classrooms that coming soon, I believe, to Halliwell's, they will have Boxlight interactive panels, which are really cool. I equate them to, it looks like a big TV, but it has touchscreen capabilities, which allows students to interact with content that is up on that board. Currently, there are Promethean boards in the county where students can come up and again, interact with content that may be on the board. They can use it as a dry erase board, but again, a digital version of that. So that's another one that you may hear more about, these Boxlight interactive panels that really take that interact panel to the next level. They are really exciting, and I know the teachers at Halliwell's they adopted the Promethean boards early on and really use them effectively. So I'm really excited to see what they'll do with these Boxlights because they really have some extra step capabilities, which are really cool. All right. So again, that was a quick, a little more than an elevator speech about the district-wide digital tools we have available to our students. And again, depending on the classroom, they may be using one more than the other. But that's again, based on the curriculum or ready to use, or again, what's available to them. And there may even be more that your students are using, which is also acceptable. There's things like Quizlet and Kahoot and stuff like that are really engaging applications that are also being used in your classroom. But these are these big centrally purchased ones that we have at the district level. Okay. And I see the question in the Q&A about Parent View and Canvas. Are the passwords the same? I'll talk about your way into Canvas here in just a minute. You shouldn't need an additional password to get into Canvas. You would pass through Parent View. So we'll talk about that here in just a few moments. But if there are any other questions about this kind of big suite here of online digital tools, again, feel free to drop them in the Q&A and we'll monitor that here. But I'm going to go ahead and move along here in our presentation.
Hey, Jason.
Yes, please.
I am. I cannot see. I'm not a co-host, so I can't see the Q&A.
Oh, gotcha.
I don't think.
I'll upgrade that for you there.
Thanks.
You're very welcome. Now you have all the power. Enjoy. All right. Now, I know prior to this session, there was a survey that was sent out asking, have you activated your Parent View account? And I believe it was a very overwhelming yes, we have activated our Parent View account. So I won't spend too much time in these next few slides, but if you are maybe new to the district or you have not activated your Parent View account, you'll want to do two things. You would contact the school and they would be able to provide you with your activation letter or code that you need. And then the next few slides that I have here walk you through the process of activating your Parent View account, depending on whether you received an email or whether you received a mailer, so something, a hard copy in the mail. All right, so again, knowing that our audience tonight has mostly activated their account, I won't go through each of these slides in depth. Just know that if that's something you still need to do, there are some slides here that, again, like I said, take you step by step through activating your account. We even have we call them tech shorts that will walk you through activating your account. So if you're more of a visual or a video tutorial person, we have a video embedded here in the slides for you as well that you're welcome to watch, and that will walk you through that process of activating your account. Okay, so I'm going to jump out and I'm going to move ahead in our slides. Again, you can see many slides here for you to support you. We also have quick guides, step-by-step guides for you, and that video tutorial if you need support with logging in or activating your ParentVUE account. All right. But what I would like to do now is jump down here to ParentVUE navigation. So if you have activated your ParentVUE account and you have access to it, and there's two ways to access ParentVUE. You can do it through a ParentVUE app on your phone, which I think the majority of us would do. That's how I monitor my own students' grades. It's just nice and convenient because I always have my phone with me. But you can also go through a website and access that way. So if you prefer not to have that app on your phone and you'd rather go through a laptop, you would also have that as well. Okay. So what kind of information is there? Well, when you first log in or you're coming through to either through the app or through the website, one thing we like to highlight always is you can set your preferred language in ParentVUE, and it will translate the content, most of the content that is available to you in ParentVUE. There are some things like the documents that are PDFs that won't necessarily be translated, but there are translated versions of things like report cards on the MCPS website if you needed that. But again, if you needed or wanted to have that information that is translated for you in the ParentVUE app before you sign in, there's a little drop down in the bottom right-hand corner that allows you to toggle your preferred language. And also if you needed an accessibility mode, whether that's screen reader or any other sort of accessibility features that you typically use while you're on your phone, you can click on the accessibility mode version of the ParentVUE website or ParentVUE app, and that will turn on those features for you and allow you to access those different features that you may choose or you may need. Okay, so that's just thing one I always like to highlight is actually even before you log in, there are some things there. You can also toggle your language once you are in ParentVUE under your account settings. Now, here's a quick screenshot of the navigation options, and there's, as you can see, there's a lot. Just this slide, when you first look at it, it has a lot going on, which means there's a lot of information in ParentVUE. When you log in, whether that's in the website or the app, on that left-hand side, you have a navigation bar that has all of these options. And each one of these options will have different information depending on what you're looking for. And I should also highlight at the top, just above that navigation, if you have multiple students in Montgomery County, even at different schools, there's a little drop down at the top and you can toggle between those students. So if I needed to see everything for Jason, I would, toggle down and click Jason. But if I needed to see Chris's information, I would click on use that toggle to switch over to Chris, and then I could access information for him and his grades and his teachers and so forth. Okay, so that's there at the top if you have multiple students in Montgomery County. But again, and we'll go more in depth into all these things, but I'll highlight just a few that are probably the most commonly accessed. Things like Synergy. That's your messaging system to communicate with teachers currently. You can check your students' attendance. That's another one. And in secondary, middle school, and high school, you can see period attendance, not just daily attendance. Also really important at the beginning of the year, there is the class schedule. So you can see your students' class schedule, see where they are at that time during the day. I should also note, I'm talking about ParentVUE right now, but there is also a StudentVUE app. And it mirrors ParentVUE exactly. These same options are there. And it's a way your students can monitor their grades as well. So if that's something you would like to do with your student and they have a phone, you would be able to have them download that, and they would sign in with their student ID, and they would have these same options, and they could check their schedule. They could check their grades and so forth. But again, as I come down here, so class schedule, that's a big one. And then gradebook, that's where you can see up-to-date assignments and grades. So throughout the semester or throughout the quarter and so forth, you can monitor your students' grades. So that way that report card isn't necessarily a surprise at the end or interims. You're able to see that throughout the year. And again, that is a fairly live gradebook. So if a teacher is putting in assignments in the morning, usually by sometime that afternoon, you would be able to see that assignment and your students' grades. And then accessing report cards, that is what that report card tab will do for you in secondary school. So middle schools and high schools, you would go to that report card tab and you would be able to see your students' overall grade for that marking period or for interims. Elementary, if we have any parents that have elementary students as well, you actually go to the document section for your elementary report cards. And that's the last one I'll highlight there is documents. That's where you can see like MAP score. So this fall, students are taking the MAP growth assessment. If you want to see how they performed on that, how they grew from the spring to the fall and so forth, you can access their MAP report there in the documents tab. Okay. So going a little more in depth into the different pieces and again, focusing in so you can get a little feel for what these pieces are. Again, Synergy Mail, it is a messaging system. Even though it's called mail, it's not a full-blown emailing system like Gmail or something like, or Outlook or something like that. But it does most of the same things. You're able to easily compose a message and send it to one of your students' teachers. You can attach files if need be. So, hey, my student was absent today. Here's the doctor's note. You could attach things like that. And then this is where you can also check on messages. So if a teacher reaches out to you through Synergy Mail, you could come through that Synergy Mail tab, read those messages over here, and even respond right in there.
So Jason, there's a good question in the Q&A. It says, what is the preferred method to communicate with teachers? Parent View app, email, .org, .net. So that's a tough question, I would say, but I would, my personal opinion, Dr. Manil, you can chime in, but if you use the Synergy Mail, that'll go directly to our .org email, which is the one we use most times. So Synergy Mail and .org, I think, would be your go-to emails to the staff.
Yeah, and the benefit of, again, as Chris was saying, either one of those, if you do choose Synergy Mail, it will go to the teachers.org. They are alerted there. So if you don't know that .org account off the, their email address off the top of your head, you could go through Synergy Mail and they receive an alert there that they have a new message. Okay. And I mentioned early on, Remind. Again, I don't want to muddy the waters even more, but as I mentioned, Remind might be something we move towards a little bit in the future that streamlines that communication a little bit later. All right. So let's go a little deeper. And again, this one, you may not see a lot of events on the calendar because, again, knowing our staff at Halliwell's, they're using things like Canvas, and that might populate a lot of their assignment due dates. But as teachers do enter assignments in Synergy, so as they're entering them in their grade book, that's populating the calendar that you might see there in Parent View. So they would show you different assignments that are due. Sometimes, though, those the due dates are expressed in class, and then you may not see that assignment populate here in the calendar until after that. But it is another way, something to check. But again, I would say most of the teachers are using Canvas with their assignments and setting due dates there. So you may not see a lot going on here in the calendar, but just note that's what is there and why you may see assignments listed on that calendar rather than other events and so forth. Attendance. So the attendance section is where you can go and see that, again, daily attendance. So if, or tardies. So you can see the little clock icon that would denote a tardy. An X would denote they were absent all day. On this screen, though, as you scroll down, you're able to see by course how many absence or tardies your student may have had. And then you can see by period and so forth. So as you scroll down on that attendance screen, you get more information about your student's attendance during the day. And you're able to go, as you see that number 3 option, you can go back and forth. So if you need to go back 2 weeks ago to see was your student, were they marked absent or anything like that, you're able to do that. So again, this is just where you can monitor your students' attendance and tardies in that attendance section. Okay. Now, I highlighted this previously in that one slide with all the navigation options. Class schedule, especially early on in the school year, as you're trying to find out what my student's schedule and so forth. This is where you could go to see that, and you would see, their period. You would see the course title, the room number, and then to the right here where it is blurred out, you would see the teacher names. So again, this is where going into pre-service week, about that week before school starts, around that Wednesday, this is typically turned on. And that's when you would be able to access your student's schedule. You can also see just above where this table is with the schedule, there are the different quarters. So as maybe there are rotations, so typically like your PE and health, they'll have PE 1 quarter and maybe health quarter 2. If you wanted to see those different schedules, that's where you could go. And then as you move into high school, that's where you could see semester schedules. So that's where you can toggle between those different quarters or semesters potentially. But then again, you're able to see the class schedule there. And actually, even beside the teacher's name, you will see little mail icons. So if you couldn't remember who your teacher's maybe advanced English teacher was, you could come here to the class schedule, find that row, and then click the little mail icon, and that would start a Synergy mail message to that teacher. So hopefully makes it a little easier for you if you can't remember that teacher's name while you're in Synergy mail. Pop over here to class schedule, and you can start that communication. Course history. So as we are in middle school, this doesn't it's important, but as you get into high school, it becomes even bigger, just following your students' progress towards graduation. But as you're in middle school, one that you may look at more is the SSL hours. So following those and seeing those populating there in this course history tab. It's also where you can see, like I said, course history. So if there was a schedule change, you would see what that previous course was. So maybe a couple weeks in, they changed their schedule. You could see that previous class if you needed to. It's also where you can monitor their GPA. So if you're curious what their GPA is for the quarter, again, it's all here in that course history tab. And again, this one we're working on with Synergy. We would love to have that GPA option on the gradebook tab. It just kind of makes sense as you're kind of navigating. So that's feedback we have heard from the parent community and students. So we are working to develop that. So be on the lookout that as an update down the road here with Synergy and Parent View. But if you are looking for that GPA, it's here in that course history. All right, so here's the secondary gradebook. And there's layers to the grade book, so to access the different grades. So that's why the screen kind of has a lot going on here. But as you click on that grade book tab, you would see all your students' courses here listed, and with a hyperlink just underneath that, where it says like MP1 interim, which is actually the period of time we're in right now. If you click on that period 1 interim, it will actually take you to a new screen where you see all of the assignments that are contributing to that grade. Now I should back up here and say, on this initial screen after I click the grade book, you can also see the student's overall grade in that class. So that would be like this 100% here. And NA means there were no assignments graded just yet. So that may be something, if you were in Parent View now, you might see an NA because there were no assignments entered just yet. But again, you can monitor that overall grade right there. But as you click on that, you are able to drill down and see all the assignments that are contributing to that. So you can see the assignment name in one column, the due date, and then you can see the score over on the right-hand side. So here would be like an 8 out of 8. So that's where you can monitor the scores that students have on different assignments, tests, and assessments, and so forth. So again, a great tool to be able to monitor, like I said earlier, live time, your students' assignments and grades as they have them, and be able to see what's missing, maybe where they need extra support and so forth, or even celebrate their successes and so forth. You do have the ability also here, once you are on the screen, there will be a drop down on the top right. So if it's let's say we're in the springtime, but you wanted to go back and see what their grade was in the fall, you have a drop down that allows you to go back and forth through different marking periods. So if it was the springtime, like marking period 3, but I wanted to see where my students started maybe in their math course back in marking period 1, I would use that toggle and go right back to marking period 1. So you can go back and forth and see those grades there, those historical grades, using a toggle at the top. All right, so secondary report cards, really nice and easy. It lives right there in that report card section, and you're able to see a digital version of the report card here. So you would see their overall grades and grades by category. There's a toggle there, as I mentioned, similar to the gradebook page, to go back and forth to see previous report cards. But also if you wanted that hard copy, a PDF of their report card, there is a link right here to view that report card. You would then have the option to save it, download it, print it, whatever you wanted to do with that report card. So that lives on that report card. Again, this is where you can check those end of marking period overall grades and so forth. The documents tab. So this is where you're going to come after to see things like map testing or interims. So that interim that doesn't show in the report card section, that shows here in the documents, and it would be uploaded as a PDF. So you'd be able to click on the link like right here. You'd be able to click on that link. It would open up the interim for you. So interims, I believe, would be coming up in a couple weeks, or actually next week they're due. So coming up soon, you would be able to go to the documents about a week after that, go into the documents tab and be able to look at that interim. Okay. You would also see historical report cards. So from previous school years, you would be able to see those report cards. So if I had an 8th grader right now, but I wanted to see one of their 7th grade report cards, I would come here to the documents tab and you would see those old report cards. And as I mentioned earlier, map scores are there. Map testing goes through the beginning of October, but about give or take 2 weeks after that, those map documents, you'd see like map report fall 2020 or whatever the date was, you would see that report there and you can view your students' map assessment results. All right, so the documents tab really is more for those. They're going to be PDFs and historical or report cards and interims. There will potentially be some more documents coming there soon. So if you have an ELL student, some of those ELD or EML documents will start to be uploaded here in the future. So this is a section that is building and growing depending on programs that your students may be a part of. All right, and then there's a parent resources tab. And actually this is fairly important tab if you want to be able to pass through to MyMCPS Classroom, or what is also known as Canvas. So if you hear MyMCPS Classroom, you hear Canvas, they are one and the same, but this is the parent way to get to Canvas to do a few things. You can see your students' classrooms there as an observer, okay? So as an observer, you're able to see, I say see, don't touch type of access, it's view only. So you're able to see those things there. And that's also where if you were going to be a volunteer, so whether that was you wanted to chaperone on a field trip or volunteer in the school, that's where you would register for the volunteer training as well. And actually, I'll point out where you can do that. So to the question earlier that was asked, are your parent view and Canvas passwords the same? You really shouldn't need to enter a Canvas password because parents, your entry point will be through parent view, then the parent resources tab, and then you'll click on MyMCPS Classroom, and that should pass you right over, automatically sign you in to Canvas, and then you'll be there. When you get to Canvas, and I see a couple questions that I'll just address real quick because before I move too far. Why are there no MCAP scores in parent view? Those are state scores, and unfortunately, we don't have access to load those that way. They are sent to schools to send to parents, I believe. So because that is one that's a little more out of our control, we don't have the ability to upload those into parent view currently. And this is where I can access. So Mia, pay attention. I think I have some resources here for you in a little bit. Because I know we have some parents, especially if you're using the Parent View app on your phone and you have the Canvas or MyMCPS Classroom parent app, it gets a little hairy with trying to do all the click-throughs and pass-throughs. So I'll point you to some supporting documents here in a little bit that will hopefully get you past that error. All right, so we'll get there shortly, and I'll show you some things that hopefully will help you out. So once I pass through to MyMCPS Classroom, if you remember earlier, I talked about this is that learning management system that teachers use, that digital platform to surface materials for students maybe to read or to view to support their learning. But that's also where students are given assignments and even quizzes, digital discussions. It all lives there. And if you're kind of curious and what's happening in your student's classroom, you would use that pass-through and you would have that view-only access here to MyMCPS Classroom, where you land on the dashboard. That's your starting point. And on that dashboard in the top right-hand corner, there's a little drop-down similar to what you had in Parent View to switch between your students. You have the ability to switch to your Parent View or your Canvas account, but then you can switch to your student's account. And again, if you have multiple students, you can toggle between that students and you would see that student's dashboard. So that dashboard would have all of their courses throughout the day that have been published. And again, I know Halliwell's is very diligent on using those classes, having them published, having content there for you, having students go that route. You would see probably your whole student schedule on their dashboard. And we call them course tiles. You would be able to click on that course tile and it would pass you through over here to their course. Let me advance a slide to take you to a bigger look. And I was able to pull a quick example of what the Halliwell's courses typically look like when you jump in there. And again, you see the teachers, they have all the things. These are all these buttons would link you to certain places in the course where they could go to like lessons and assignments and complete one of those assignments, view the syllabus and resource. And again, as a parent, you have view access to a lot of these resources. So if you wanted to see that course syllabus as a parent, you would be able to click on that button and see that course syllabus. Where you may not see all of the things is when you get into lessons and assignments, especially if students are working on a Google document. If they were working on a Google document, you would need your student to sign in maybe on their Chromebook and show you that document. But you would see the assignment requirements and directions going through that route. So you're able to see what is asked of your students to potentially be able to support them. So again, it's view only access. You won't be able to submit anything or anything like that. And again, depending on the type of assignment, you may not see all of the students' work, but you'll again see the directions, the task, and potentially even students' grades as they are graded in Canvas. So there is a grade section, or even when you go to an assignment, if it has been graded, you would see what the student received on it and potentially even feedback if teachers were using the feedback feature there in Canvas. Okay.
I want to just jump in real quick and say
Yep.
one quick thing. Well, first of all, you have that question again about the error message they're getting. But so when parents go into my MCPS classroom, the grade might be different than what you see in the Synergy classroom. In the Synergy, what's that called? Parent view side of things, because teachers don't just give assignments and grades through the Canvas classroom. So to get their true accurate grade, you want to be in parent view.
Yeah, so great point, and I'm glad you brought that up, because again, this is a digital platform, but there may be the paper documents or paper assignments and so forth that are graded and put directly. So if you want that report card grade, check parent view for that kind of source of truth there. Okay. All right. The one other thing I mentioned earlier is if you were a parent and you wanted to volunteer in your student's school, when you sign and pass through to My MCPS Classroom or Canvas, there's a resources icon on the left-hand side in that blue navigation bar. When you click on that icon, you'll see one of your options is to register for the volunteer training. And once you register and go through that registration process, on your dashboard in Canvas would be a course for you to complete, a short training video to watch, and a short quiz to confirm that you've completed the whole training. And then your school would actually be able to run a report on their end and see that you've completed that training. So if you wanted to be a volunteer, or if you were asked to be a chaperone for any reason, you would need to complete that volunteer training. And this is where one place it lives there in Canvas. There are other ways in. So if you have not activated your Parent View account yet, there is another way that you can get there. And again, if you needed that information, contact the school. And I'm always here to help with that as well. All right, so to our questions here, not in the Parent View resources, but I do want to point out, what do we have for parents? Well, we have a lot. What we try to do is, we know everyone learns and has different needs, so we try to make as much of our support on demand as possible. So we have things like these enrollment shorts or athletics. So if you needed to register a student for athletics, we have some video tutorials here for you. Even though this says kindergarten online registration, if you did need to enroll a student at a different school, this would actually walk you through that. One that's not specifically here in a video, but I would want to mention is important. It's what we call it annual verification season. When the schools send home the yellow emergency cards and you verify that all the information that you provided to the school is correct or up to date, you can do that on one of those yellow cards that may come home. You can also do it through Parent View. In the top right-hand corner of Parent View, there is an option to do that online verification. And I will say, The schools will greatly thank you if you do it online or through ParentVue, because it automatically updates in the Synergy system any changes you've made. So if you had a preferred email address that you wanted to change, now's the time to do it. Or if you wanted to assign or identify a primary language spoken at home, so that way resources are translated for you automatically, you would be able to do that. You would have to, again, identify that primary language. So there are things happening now that are similar to online registration called annual verification that you can do in the ParentVue app. And again, we really encourage you to do that because it automatically updates in Synergy, and it's not having to be manually entered. So you can imagine if there are a big stack of those verification cards that need to be entered, it would take some time. But if it's done through the online platform, heck of a lot faster, and the school has that most up-to-date information for you. So just another a little plug there to do in ParentVue if you've already activated your account.
Will your turn?
Oops,
Will your turn?
Move on to the next slide. See if we can get there without playing a video.
Is your middle one?
Here we go. We do also, if you are new to the ParentVue app, maybe you just activated your account and you're still kind of getting acclimated, and you heard some things tonight that were helpful, but you would like to be able to kind of watch it again and pause and play and so forth. Again, another resource available for you here in the slides presentation. They are also available.
Already.
Let me get here. In all of these different sites. Now, I say all of these different sites, the best place to go to is actually the Montgomery County Public Schools website, and then to the parents section. And all of these links are there. There's right at the top, there's a little technology section, and you can click on ParentVue resources, and you would have access to all of these links as well. So those videos I just showed and just introduced you to, they're all on that site. Any of the resources. So how do I activate my account, or how do I find grades for my student? How do I message a teacher? All those supporting guides are on that parent site on that support section that talks about Synergy and ParentVue. Okay. Now, also to some of your questions, like I see, like I'm having trouble with that pass through. Some of our resource guides, our support guides, do have a troubleshooting section. But also you have access to a community support site. And in that community support site, if I go here, there are the how-tos of that support site, but you can create a community support site account, and you can either live chat with a live agent. We also have the chat bot that'll answer your questions, but there is a live agent during certain times. But if you create an account, you can also call the community support and get that help that you need as well. In that community support site are some of those troubleshooting guides, like I'm getting an error when I do this. How do I get past that? Those are all in, it's called the knowledge base. It's a library of support guides for parents and students, where you can go and submit a ticket. So if you're like, I can't find it in the knowledge base, I'm just going to ask, you can submit a help desk ticket to this community support site. You can also, like I said, chat with somebody or even call. But again, to be able to chat or call, you have to create a community support site account. And the link that is here and also on that parent site on the Montgomery County Public Schools website has this guide that will help you create that account, but also create one of those tickets if you need help. Okay. And gets me close to the end, or that would be the support section and actually a lot of the content I have for you. But what I'd like to do, and I do this cautiously, is if you have questions, drop them in the chat. This is a discussion time. If you have questions, I'll invite you to unmute after you drop it in the chat, or I'm sorry, in the Q&A. So if you have a question, drop it in the Q&A, and then we can talk about that. Or if you have, like I see an example of, I have 3 of my kids, but 2 of them are only showing in ParentVue. What do I do? What you should do is email the schools, whether that's the registrar or one of the secretaries, and they will reach out to those that can combine the accounts. Typically, what we've seen has happened is you probably have a student in one school, maybe an elementary school, and then another one, or in your case, 2 that are maybe in middle school. Each school created a parent account for you. associated with those students, what we do is we merge them for you. But contact the school and let them know, I can see these 2 children, but I can't see this one, and let us know where that school that other student attends. We're able to do a search and merge and help out the schools that way. So contact the schools.
I'll put the contact in the answer on that.
Perfect. Thank you. Is this where I see an error? Yeah, and Mia, again, depending, and if you want to drop in the Q&A, are you using this all on your phone, or are you going through the Parent View website to get over into Canvas? Because again, if you're using the website, again, on a laptop or on a Chromebook, it's a touch easier to get over to Canvas, the phone. And again, I guess Mia, I'm going to ask you to unmute here. I'm going to invite you to do that and just talk to me for a second. I'm going to unmute you here so we can talk through that. Let's see, Mia. There you are. Can you hear me, Mia?
Yeah.
Awesome. On your phone, do you also have the Canvas parent app? Or is it taking you to the Canvas website?
So when I go to the resources, like when my kids were in elementary school, I would get the emails. I'd click on the link and it would say there's an error message, you need to sign in. So I would try and sign in, go through Parent View, and I've never created an account. So I'm like, how am I supposed to access it? So then I just logged into Canvas Student. So I didn't do it through, I gave up with the whole parent app. But Parent View, I can access everything else. It's just that when I do the resources and try to move forward, it just gives me an error, whether I'm on the computer, email, the app. I just don't think I've ever set up an account. Do I need to? And where would I do that?
That's a great point you bring up. You don't have to create an account, because once you create a Parent View account, you are automatically created a Canvas account. And it's linked to your students when you do that. But again, you have to go through that resources. So that parent resources, and then click there, and then pass through. If I go back, let's see if I can get back there quickly. It all drives through this parent resources. Then if you had an email or like a message from the teacher with a link to an assignment, like, hey, this assignment's coming up, kiddos, make sure you submit it. If you clicked on that link, it's not going to work for you, unfortunately. You have to go through, you would have to know what that assignment name was and which class it is, and go through this parent resources and then my MCPS classroom.
So when I click on that, sorry to interrupt, that's where I get, you must first log into Synergy to access this page. What is Synergy?
So Synergy is Parent View for you. So that's an interesting one. If you keep getting, it sounds like you're caught in a cycle there of this login. I would reach out to that community support site because they have the access to do those things.
What about are you using Chrome?
I'm just on my phone.
And that's usually the challenges on the phones. This cycle will happen. So they would have to check those types of. So again, that community support would be your best bet. But if you go this route through a Chromebook or like a laptop, you should have more success, especially if you're in the Chrome browser. You would have more success going this way. But we do know with phones, and we've reached out to Synergy and Canvas, and we're trying to get the two to work together to make it a smoother process. It's just not there yet.
Okay, I'll try the resource, the email that you sent.
Yeah, there's an email here, but again, if you go to the parent section of the Montgomery County website, that's where you can also get to that community portal and actually even create an account and live chat with somebody or talk with them on the phone.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Yep, absolutely.
So another question, when parents update personal information, that includes who can pick up their child, is everything accessible in there?
Yep. So let's see if I can go back to, there's a screenshot here. Yes. So if you're doing that online verification here in up here in that, so it lives up there in that online registration section. So you're doing annual verification. So you're not really registering a student, but you're verifying that information you have. It will update and send that to the school. So if you needed to add an additional person that is allowed to pick up, or you had a phone number that changed or an email address you would prefer to use, You would do that all through annual verification. It's only open for a certain window of time here in the fall. So if it was going anywhere out of that, so let's say we get into December or February or something like that, you would just contact the school. Typically your front office staff, secretaries, they're able to update that information right in Synergy, and then that updates everywhere else as well. So again, continue. If you have other questions, feel free to drop those in the Q&A, and we can, talk about them, or even ask you to unmute at that point if we want to talk through it.
Hi, my name is Mary. I have similar issue with the person that just last spoke. I'm also trying to go through the parent view to my MCPS classroom. When I click on the resource, it just gives me an error message. I'm logging in from my laptop, so I'm not able. It says I should go through the Synergy, so I'm unable also to view anything from my MCPS classroom.
Okay. Yeah, again, I hate to point everybody to this community, what this site here, but I think that's going to be our best bet to get this resolved quickly, because they will have the access. I'll put this in the chat right now for everyone. This website, this is a community service, but they'll be able to look at the connection between Synergy and Canvas and be able to fix that for you. So again, I would check that out here and see what can be done, because it's possible there may be an issue with the connection right now. And if we start submitting tickets, we'll get in touch with the right people to fix that.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the evening? And again, I know we've talked a lot about parent view here at the end, but if there is questions about classroom technologies that are being used, I'm happy to speak to some of those. Or I know Chris he uses a lot in his classroom as well, so he can talk more specifically about some of the things that are happening at Hwms as far as technology goes.
I can unmute and just simply say that for the parents who are here, you've heard about the Remind app being rolled out, and we probably will be utilizing the Remind app at Hwms just because it's an easy way for me to quickly send out, for us to quickly send out messages via text message. So that won't happen probably within a couple of weeks, but I would presume at least by winter break, the administrative team and probably some staff members will be utilizing Remind. So if MCPS sends out any information about that app, I would encourage parents and caregivers to read up on that, because we will be implementing it in some way here shortly.
I'll just mention, just as we're kind of previewing Remind, the beauty of Remind is you don't have to activate another app. You don't have to sign up for something else. That is the beauty from the parent side. There's nothing else you need to do other than make sure your contact information in Synergy is up to date. So as long as you have a cell phone number, an email address, or a phone number, a landline phone number listed in Synergy or with the school when you enrolled that student, you're all set for Remind, and you don't need to do anything else. And those messages will come to you via text or email, depending on your preference. So you don't have to download the Remind app. You don't have to activate anything. You just get the communications, which is so nice and easy. And we do have parent support coming on how to restrict those Remind messages. Part of it is based on, again, what you have listed in Synergy. Remind looks at cell phone first as its priority of sending that message, just because, again, the majority of people are checking their text and reading more of the text. But if you did prefer to change that, that's maybe where you would choose to download the Remind app, and then you could set your notification preferences, and then you can set it and forget it. You don't have to go to the Remind app ever again after that, but that's where you could do that. And we have parent guides and supports for that already. So as it rolls out, we'll make sure that the community has those supports that they need. Teachers will have them available to share with you as well, once that's activated and running. I'll give it another 30 seconds or so for any other last questions. All right. I'm not seeing anything else pop in. I'll close briefly with again, Hallie Wells, thank you for having me. I've been with you since the start, so it's nice to feel like I'm part of a family member with you all. And I know Hallie Wells is doing amazing, great things, especially when it comes to technology. You all have always been risk takers and implementing it in the best. And I'll say something I'm very excited about in the next few coming years. There's some really exciting technologies that I think teachers will start using. And I know who I'm going to tap first to come and do that. Because again, innovators, they're risk takers, and it's a great place to be and to use technology. So parents, we'll have more of these nights and some really cool things to come for sure.